differentiates your community
Well,
from
yeah,
these
and
communities.
you just want to go quickly through
Yeah.
most of these.
And it may help us understand why Central Falls may be succeeding in one way they're not.
See, I started in market research 40 years ago with the guy by the name of Lou Wittgen, who
And Lou knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he and his brother really started market research for home builders in California. I was lucky enough to meet him when I graduated in college. So I was with him for 7 years. What we used to, what he taught me, and what we used to, he still does, but what I like to do is, you have to marry both the quantitative and the qualitative. Like there's a lot of market researchers or analysts and builders that tend to be too quantitative oriented and just start looking at price per foot and all that crap without understanding what the customer sees in the home, the plan, and the merchandising, marketing, and all of that. And all those elements are very, very unique. I mean, it's why do you pay more for this, and I think it's even probably more so today because the consumers are, we're all just much smarter in your day with so many more options. You see more things around the world without leaving your home. And you also have to look at the quantitative, and that's why we spend so much time on the everything from the site plan to the detailing to the floor plans to the elevations, because it feels different. So to go to a much higher level, like for the major regional builders, and I'm a private, so I'll preface that saying I'm partial, okay? Whether I was at the old Minto doing, let's say, 800,000 units a year, or at Label we're doing, obviously 50, 75 units a year, but why a company like the old Minto, and I can only speak for the old Minto because I'm not at the new Minto, okay? Or GL, who we were always compared to, and I have extraordinary respect for, why I believe, many other people, they can always and will always, and you can go see it today in Palm Beach County, outperform the public companies on a building, marketing, community standpoint, is that they're private, it's their own money, and the privates, the great privates in general, and whether it's true whether you go to California or Colorado or Texas or Florida, will invest more of themselves within all those details of a project than a public company, whether it's Lennar or forget Standard Pacific or a bunch of the others, because to the publics, remember, I'm prejudicial. I'll acknowledge that because I come from a private background. They're much more of a financial production machine, and they have to do much higher volumes, and they have to keep on producing with higher volumes, otherwise it affects their stock price. And in general, they don't have they don't want to spend the time or the attention to detail to change each of the communities and to spend the necessary time in whether it's a community detailing or the product detailing, et cetera, et cetera. Now there are some publics that do certain things very well. You can go to Stanpack in certain projects, like in Parkland is, I think, doing a nice job. Not as nice. If you went to GL's community, the Bridges, you would say, well, not as nice as the Bridges, and you'd be right. But they're doing. When you look at Raintree, it looks like a typical public job. So I think in general you'll find that the privates will spend more on the artistry of the job, on the marketing of the job, on the foreplay of the job. It's a different package, and the publics will give you more of a bland volume oriented thing. But that affects you as a consumer. And listen, obviously, the largest companies in the country are the public, so they're doing something right. There's a big market for that. There's nothing wrong with it. We need all these different pieces. We need, the market needs all these different choices because it's not a one size fits all, and it's actually, it's good for us because it stratifies, you know, the competition. And it's good for the consumer, you know, because it gives the consumer, you know, much better choice, wider choice. You know, so if you just want to run through this quickly, you know, Central Park, it's in a location in Tamarack, it's on Commercial Boulevard. They're filling an incredible void for detached single-family product in that price range. You can't find it really too many places in Broward County, and they're doing well. You know, something like you know, Chelsea Place is the same thing. It's just and it fills a very, very necessary and needed void. You know, mass production. And listen, I spent a lot of my life building that. So, you know, if I took you to what we did in the township in the '80s, we had 5,000 units. You know, we couldn't afford to spend a lot of money on elevations. Our average price was $60,000, 1,233 square feet, and we paid all the closing costs. You know, there's not a lot left. So, you know, sometimes it has to be plain to hit that void or to hit that market. You know, you know, Town Park in Parkland, Lennar did an upgraded job there, but if you look at their units, they're in a very narrow range. You know, I think what is 1,800 to 2,100 or something. But Parkland is an A+ area for any of those that know it. Their Town Park, you know, it's within their Miralago community. It's a very, very nice. It's an A neighborhood, and they have an incredible entrance, a nice clubhouse. And they're getting good prices there, you know, and they're selling it at a very reasonable pace. But they're not going to do architecturally or product-wise. They got too big of a machine to move. You know, it's like the old story. You know, they're a big battleship. They can't move that fast. It takes a lot of inertia and energy to move. You know, I may be a little overweight, but I'm not that overweight. So we, as an independent operator, our strength is we got to be able to move very, very fast and to fill voids and niches that the larger companies can't or don't want to do because it's just out of their playbook and it's out of their production. But there's not a bad or a good to either. I mean, I spent a lot of my years doing. We had the simplest, highest volume, and somebody say, well, their elevations, maybe they're a little plain here and there. I said, well, customers seem to like them a lot because they can afford it. You know, there's one time in the late '80s when the market was still, you know, very price sensitive. You know, went to California. We came up with this great product, very, you know, on a small lot with a double Z, very fancy elevation, one little problem. Cost about $10,000, $15,000 more per unit than when some competitor was building down the street. We didn't sell too many, so we had to can that one quickly, and you know, come up with a new product. You know, Valletta, you know, I'm not specific. We like the railroad truck.
But part of the challenge, but what's interesting to me, so yes, you go to different
products.
products.
No, but I'll just finish. Grover, Raintree, and Cove. That's really. Whoever said both, Plantation is a similar price range, and Plantation is an excellent, what are you guys talking about, Lagomar and that stuff. It's an excellent location, they have good schools, all that stuff. It's a good comp price-wise. What we found 20 years ago today, and still today, is that State Road 84, 595 is a huge barrier in terms of getting people to cross it one way or another. But I think it's a real good comp, and I use that Plantation area a lot, just from a price market acceptance comparison. Coming down to Grover, Raintree, and Cove, and whoever we're talking about, I mean, that's really the most, Raintree's the closest. It's really the only other townhome in Pembroke. I think if you look at the plans, you really have to walk through the plans. You'll see a big difference. And if you want, we could, if you want to put them online, I can show. We could at some point, if you want to go online, we can, they can show you. But they're 3-story townhomes, are 20 feet, and they're very narrow, and they don't have a model at Raintree. You got to go to Montclair, or the older community, see the model. Their two-story unit and the three-story building is similar to our Mango with their units, so there's a lot of light. On their two-story buildings with a front-loaded garage, the end units are not bad, but if you look at the entry to the interior units, and it doesn't even show on the brochure, you got literally got to see it. You got this huge, very, very dark entry, you know, from the street to the front door. And then the doors are side by side like you would have in an apartment building. So it's really has to light.
So they're long and narrow. Here's a side entry plan.
Yeah, we'll go to a three-story. I think if you go to a, yeah, no, go to the other one. Go to the three-story. But what I was saying was the biggest difference there. Hey, stop looking at the plans. The biggest difference between, let's say, Raintree and us, putting aside the plans, because if I was at Raintree, I couldn't do what we're doing in Central Falls. For those of you that know Pembroke, its location. Pembroke Road doesn't have really the same reputation, convenience as Sheridan and Flamingo. I mean, it's really more of a transitional area. And then its elementary and middle schools are C. Ours are A. A big thing when you look into new housing, resale housing, the school district has a direct and irrefutable value on the home price. It's unbelievable. And so even like empty nesters where you think the schools sometimes aren't that important, they know from a resale standpoint, the school district is important. Now, in West Palm Beach, we didn't have a great, when we did villas, we didn't have a good school district, but it was in town. Our market wasn't younger families with kids, it was mostly empty nesters. And we knew the few families or divorcees with kids that we were going to get there, we felt the kids were going to be in private schools anyways. So, you know, if you wanted to live in that part of town, which was, you know, downtown West Palm Beach, that was the deal, and you weren't going to get the families. The families that were going to come there had the money and the affluence they were already going to be in private schools. If the school was the issue, then we weren't going to get you.
So I'm kind of jumping ahead.
Oh, but just one more.
Sure.
So at Raintree, they're really after a different market. Their buyer, I mean, our buyers, they'll look at Raintree, but our real quality buyers don't want to go there because of location. And they have to be lower, and they raise, and people that can't qualify for us on the lower end, that's their alternative. And there's not a right or a wrong, you know, there's a market for both.
Yeah. So let's go to the pro forma. We're trying to figure out revenues, what's the profit, what's the cost line, and then see what comes out of that. And I gave you some of the statistics, of course, but we know that the land acquisition is 6.5, development costs, infrastructure, before we get to the building costs. And then we have to figure out what some of those elements were. And so your job was really, what is this allocation? And how do we get to at least the gross revenue line? And of course, as he said, we're kind of like 70-30, give or take, and that allocation is what's going to get you first to your gross revenues. So who wants to start off with your gross revenues? Who wants to start with a pro forma?
I got just under 40 million.
All right, well, start off with it. So I looked at yours last night. It's a good first cut. Take us through what you did.
Well, first of all, I called the salespeople to try and get a handle around the mix.
Okay, that's fair.
And because I thought that would be real live information.
All
So
right.
based on that, I had 11 Flamingo, 11 Mango, 5 Tango, 11 Cosmo, 40 Sky, 11 Pearl, and I used a unit price for each of the models, and that's where I got 39.46 million.
All right, and so, but when you look at that,
I'm sorry?
I hope you're right.
So you're less than that?
Well, okay, but like, hold that thought, did anybody else come close to 40 million, and what did you come up with,
Also
Steve?
about 39.1.
All right, and Chad?
I was right at 49.
Okay, but so it's interesting, and we'll see what everybody else came up with. So when we looked at the number, now this was actually when the loan package that he presented to the lenders here.
Page 7.
And so now this was based upon his original 70-30, and he was more conservative, which is appropriate, right? And so he had his base pricing, and then he put in his premiums. Now remember, when we looked at premiums, we talked only briefly last week about what people are paying for premiums, and I thought it'd be beneficial for you to talk about it, because those base prices that we saw on that pretty chart there are always just the base prices. And so
Yeah,
what's
but the premiums, you know, on a site plan like ours, we don't have a lot of high premium locations. If we were in a more traditional suburban area with the lakes and everything else, the water is where you typically get your highest premiums. Even in the golf course communities, you get more for a good lake view than you get for a golf course view. So our premiums are really pretty simple. We get 10,000 for the ends, and you got to price the ends high because everybody wants the ends. And if you face the pool area, because of all the view, you get another 10,000.
even for all that noisy kid stuff, people will pay for?
Well, what you'll get is you either hate it or love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the majority don't want it, but those that want it
We'll pay for it.
really want it.
Interesting.
I mean, the thing we're a bit more conservative, I always go, or try to go more conservative, is on the customer options, and use that like as a cushion. What we'll try and do, let's say in this case, is we give a very strong base package. So, the guys, if you went and did your competitive analysis, what we're giving is our standard package. The flooring, what we give is flooring, what we give is cabinets, what we give is countertops, is a few levels above, let's say, what Rain Tree is giving, or what Lennar gives for cabinets and so forth. So I try and do it in this particular case, where if you're younger or you're more price sensitive, you can buy a Flamingo or a Mango. You don't have to spend a lot of money on options. You're going to spend a little bit. You may get upgraded for you, so you're going to put in this, or you're going to buy museum cabinets. And remember, we give you a special also, so you may spend $5,000, $10,000, which is not a big amount, and you get a great unit, and I'm happy.
But are people, in effect, are your salespeople saying, see, you're already getting the upgraded?
Yeah. We push that. We say right in our ads and everything else, our standards are the builder's upgrades. So, and like I saw a mother with her daughter, her grown daughter, they were looking for the daughter. So, and I tell just what you said, I think it was the day I said that. Anyways, so, the daughter, she can get the unit, she's getting married, blah, 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 blah. And she doesn't have to spend a lot extra. To the mother, no, you're going to buy the Pearl. I was joking with her a little bit, but so you were going to sell a lot of options. And when you look at it, the Pearl Sky buyers are going to spend between $50,000 and $85,000 on options. So at the end of the day, however you do your mix, it's going to average out just fine.
By the way, so you introduced the Tango, and you mentioned, and I don't know if anybody's thought of this, yes, someone could theoretically add the elevator. Can they actually add the elevator at a later date?
Yeah, the way we build it, the way we build the elevator shaft, Rosie knows this, we structurally frame it for the elevator up front, right? And then we just put in a false floor if you don't take the elevator, so you have big storage.
So you have the pit.
So, yeah, all you have to do is knock out the false floors, you have to do the electrical, and you have the elevator company come in and do it.
That increased the construction cost a lot?
No. Theoretically, yes, but not a lot. But it gives you that flexibility, and it's not something that should drive the trend. If you think about it, if you're putting in the elevator as an option, it's what you should really do. I mean, if you just think about a lot of these things, what's the right way to do it for the customer to do in the long run, usually takes care of itself.
And you would say something?
Just, no, I was going to say, just because he thought out ahead, it's prepared, it doesn't bring any cost or additional cost while the person chooses it, it's already built in the cost.
And what's interesting is, if most buyers are smart, you know, they would pay the extra 20 or 25 because they're financing 80 or 90% of it now. My guess is people will spend it, but, okay, but the option
we sold a
exists,
few
so the
of those,
illusion
right?
is there.
In West Palm Beach, we sold a lot of elevators.
Right, and that makes sense.
And the
Here
people
we
that
saw-
didn't buy it, that later came and put
Right.
it.
Right, yes,
What percentage of that total mix of units are you selling options in? 10%, 15%?
I don't understand the question. What percent
Well,
of
we
the
have
options
eight
of
to
the
nine,
market?
we have 8 to 9 units. Are you selling options in
All
9 or
units.
10?
No, I don't understand.
every unit has option.
We
Every
have
unit
options.
You can sell options in.
You know,
I know, but are you selling elevators and all these
No, no,
other?
just,
no, only
just,
in the
just
city
the,
store. And
just the Sky, the Pearl, and the Tingle. But everyone, all the units, we have the flooring, the cabinets, the lighting, the railings, you know, we have all those options in all the units. The elevator is just one option. And it's really not a high margin option. We do it more as a convenience to sell the unit.
it gives people the incentive to then make
It's
the
actually
sale.
it's probably the lowest margin of all the options. But I don't know if I explained to you last week. By offering the elevator, it takes a big element or a big objection out for a lot of empty nesters. Whether they buy it now or they buy it later, they know they can do it. That just puts it to bed. If we didn't have the elevator, they may not want to use the unit. So I use the elevator as a sales tool. So the elevator guy said to us, in West Palm Beach, what are you doing selling all these elevators? I did it very simple, I thought the elevator business. So, you know, it cost us, let's say, 20, 21, 22,000. And we sell it for, let's say, 28,000. So, you know, it's not percentage-wise a big markup, as opposed to like flooring and cap. I mean, the options, the bread and butter for option prices, option upgrades, and that's what most people buy. It's all cabinets. I mean, that's what I want to say. That's the reason I
Did any of the, I didn't check, did any of the other competitors offer elevators? None. And so he's targeting and capturing a completely different demographic there.
As a boutique builder, we can do that.
Right? The others wouldn't
You
even
know,
bother.
as a small, more intimate boutique builder, we can do it as a more private. I mean, we did elevators in the 90s in two-story garden apartments. It's funny, in the 80s, to retirees, we sold walk-ups all day long. To the second floor, out exterior staircase. All of a sudden, we had a new community of boys. They don't want a second floor. Like, same market, just 2 years later, prices got higher. So we redesigned it, and we called it the Grande. But we had and we put it in the price. It was a private elevator. In those days, I think it cost us 10,000 or whatever it cost us. But we made the elevator standard. And these units that we were selling for 89,000. And the second floors took up. And we just averaged the cost across the units, you know, the first and second floor. So, would a public do that? I don't know, but a hands-on private that's very responsive to the market can do it. And here we're used to doing, Gary Clement and Rosie works all the time. I mean, we've been together, I told you, he comes from all, you know, Gary, 30, 35 years. We're used to doing a lot more. You know, and now at this stage, whatever, we're having a small group, but you know, our little small group got it from nothing to models in 7 months, you know, most months. So, for us, you know, it's not a big deal. I mean, we know what to do, we know how to do it, we know how to manipulate, not manipulate it, but move the pieces around, and we can, hopefully we've learned something over the years. So we can be more hands-on, you know, but it's not dissimilar to, you know, and electronic, well, make it a little bit more elegant, jobs. Well, what would John, he spent agonized over the design issue.
Okay. So, costs. Anybody do costs? Mr. Carnegie? What did you come up with?
Well, I came up with, just under 20 million for construction-related costs, and then, let's see.
I mean, I gave you the raw costs essentially, we just averaged
Yeah,
about $90.
substructure and acquisition, we got, yeah, just under 20 million in construction.
Really, so that's a little light. What do you all come up? Steve?
I was at 28.2.
Okay.
You were at 20 million, what, for all costs or just construction?
Just construction.
Oh, yeah, no, so he had a different unit mix.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's still
did.
light,
Yeah.
but you came up with 28. You're just taking the numbers that I gave you. So,
No, what was your bottom line? I'm a little confused.
yeah, did you
Your
not have
total
your
costs were
infrastructure
20
costs? Yeah, I'll get to you in a second. You didn't have the infrastructure and any of the other
Oh,
items,
yeah, I have
SG&A?
infrastructure 2.5, acquisition 6.5.
So your total costs were,
Oh, 28.2.
okay, and did you come up with something similar?
A little different. I have land acquisition at 6.5, construction cost at 18 million, infrastructure development at 2.5, and then you have indirect costs, which is site overhead and cost of sales at 1.8, and indirect development cost at 3.7. So my total development cost was like 32 million.
I see, okay, you're a little bit more. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anybody
What
else
was
in the
your
same
unit?
ballpark?
It's actually a whole purple.
At 28.
No, what, how'd you, the model mix? More bigger or smaller?
Everything, it's,
How many skies improved versus the other?
I actually did the average, so,
Yeah.
it's, 203,721 square feet at $184 per square feet.
So we're going out of business with a manual here.
No, I was doing the conservative stuff that you had in the case study, so you kind of compare different markets
Yeah.
and use like an average price, unit per square feet. So you came up to like 190, price per square feet. The average, yeah. So I went a little bit lower than that because earlier in the case study you had $184 per square feet.
Keep in mind, when you adjust resale prices, like when you're looking at resale comps, there's a lot of adjustments. Your two main adjustments are obviously, one is location, and that's true in new hotels. Like Raintree versus us, there'd be a location adjustment. But the other thing is that there's a premium for new versus resale. And people will change it a little bit, but it's in the range of 10 to 15%. You have to adjust the resale to get it to the new price.
Any other costs issues here? And then, so basically, once again, taking from the loan, we're keeping our SG&A, selling general administrative here, but effectively, what Eric showed up was effectively about a 22% gross profit and an NOI that's producing about 12.5%. Now, I'd like him to speak to whether these are generally his gross profit and net profit margins, or was it what you put forward to the lender because these were your conservative estimates
No,
so that you could get the,
I think it's fairly.
Financing.
No, I don't think it's pretty real, like, the way the pro forma I give to the lender is the same pro forma we underwrite with, the same pro forma I give to my partners. I mean, I can't remember all these different pro forma stuff. I have one, maybe I'll remember a few things. And plus, it's easier, and it's just, you don't get into the game of giving different pro formas to different people, because
Yeah.
you're gonna
Right.
get a knife across your throat, and somebody's gonna, and plus you're gonna forget and not remember. No, it's the way it fell out, which is why, the way we underwrote it, which is the way we were comfortable with it. I think it's, if you go back and look at where, and the only reliable information you have is what you can see from the public companies, you're seeing gross profits in the range of, for the well-run companies, 21 to 23, 24%. Toll tends to be higher because they're a luxury builder with a higher average price, and they're always a little bit higher. You know, Lennar is, well, it's probably the best run public builder, and definitely the smartest financially. I mean, there's no question about that. And you know, they're very, very disciplined people. I mean, for what they do, nobody does it better. And their margins, you know, or their gross margins are in that 20, and nets tend to be around 10, 12%. As a home building, those are higher than we historically, lower, they're higher than where we were, let's say, in the 80s, 90s. I mean, there were days in the 80s, 90s where we were all like gross margins of 15, 16%. And our average prices were much lower too.
Well, but part
But
of
the
this-
industry's matured.
Of course,
The
but
com-
part of this is too, the buy on the land. And so that's a key component when you look at this, folks. I mean, the land is 17% of the total cost. And to the extent that he gets a good buy in the land,
It
he was
wasn't
just
a
as
good buy, it
way.
was market. See, I don't subscribe to what most people do with this 20-25% of sales price nonsense. Because what's in the land? So I could argue, our land price is really the what did I pay, 70,000 a unit for the land, plus my infrastructure,
Right,
Yeah.
there's the 2.5.
which is 100,000,
Right.
which makes it 25%. See, so when people say 25%, if they're talking about a single-family lot, you just can't buy unless you're buying a finished lot. You got to add all that infrastructure back in there to make it finished.
Right, of
So
course.
coincidentally, it comes out to 25%. But when I buy something, when I look at any deal, you know, I do a sheet that's not dissimilar to this on a per unit basis. It doesn't really matter if I have 80, 60, or 2,000. But if I know if I can make it work basically with those headings on one piece of paper, then I know the rest of it's gonna fold in. And then our net income is in the range of, 10, 12%. It's realistic. I mean, that's, if you put it this way. If you can't achieve numbers like that on a real, first of all, it doesn't make sense to kid yourself, because you're gonna have to pay the piper to yourself, to your lenders, to everybody. So those type of margins within a range of 2% or so, either way, will throw off, if you look at IRRs, which some people do and some people don't.
Do you?
Do you? I look at it, we never used them as a guide.
And how levered are you on this deal?
I want to talk about that, we're very under leveraged.
Okay,
So, I don't believe in leverage.
you heard it here.
I think leverage is the knife that cuts your neck. If you look historically at home building, I'm a home builder, that's right. The companies that have survived 40, 50 years, public or private, whether you're Lennar, look at their leverage, Toll, look at their leverage. I know at Minto, our leverage was very, very low. Like Irving would have an expression, it's pretty tough to go broke if you're not borrowing any money, for the land. Because the land is what kills you, And GL, low leverage. You can juice your returns in the good times with a lot of leverage. But as soon as the market turns much faster than you. It turns bad much faster, and you lose more quicker than it took you all those years to make it, and you don't live to survive another day. So, in our deals here, a typical deal is, if the land cost us 6.5, my partners and I will raise, or in that case, between 10 and 10.5 million of equity. So the land is equity. The infrastructure is, we borrow, it's, our infrastructure, because they're small deals, is not a lot, so we'll borrow 50% of the infrastructure, like 1.2, which is, that's for the whole. Now, who was asking me about the spec units and everything else, that gives me the surplus cash to fund the overheads. And also, when we start the job, I like to build, like when you were out there last week, you saw that there were Model and 3 other buildings under construction. Even if I had no sales, we could build all that because I could build it out of cash. So when you come to the job, it doesn't look like you're at a small company job. It looks like you're at it could be a Minto, it could be Lennar, it could be GL.
Big boy.
Yeah, and that's how you weather it. So, and if the world would end tomorrow, and this is the way I look at it, we have our investment in the job. We know we've got, what's our worst exposure? We've got, it's not like we went crazy, we got X-spec units, right? We can either cut the cost of those units to the point of pulling our equity out, selling them, or we can rent the units. And then our biggest decision, if the market, if the world were to, let's say, shut down, is do we build the balance of the job to just pull your equity out of the land, or do you shut the job down or slow it way, way, way down and wait till the market returns? But because you're not paying, you're not borrowing, I don't have an interest check. You can pay the bank off, because we're not borrowing, we're only borrowing us a few spec units, so we paid it off. Our big cost is taxes. So
You live to see another day.
you live
Right.
to see another day. And you live to, and you have a choice. You can pull your money out and build them out at lower cost to keep the engine going, which we've all done in bad times. Or you go fishing, as they say, and come back. And if you look at the publics, look at Lennar, they have about a 50% debt to equity. Look at Total's 50% equity. So I even have people, bankers ask me, not the bankers I use, but bankers who I consider stupid and what I use. Well, why'd you have a higher IRR? Or you should, I said, listen, you guarantee the loan and you just borrow more money and you can have an higher IRR. I don't want it. So people that have been in this business, and I'm a home builder, so I only talk about home builders, they understand, if you look at the return on equity for home building over a long period of time, or if you look at it short, like, it's just reading an analyst report this week, it's 14 to 15%. Lennar, who's the most profitable, and most people's opinion on Wall Street, smartest financially, their return on equity is 14 to 15%. Total is 14 to 15%. You want to over-lever? Go back and look at Hovnanian, because you saw one of their, and you'll see where that gets to. They should have filed bankruptcy in 2009 or 10, restructured their balance sheet, and move on. They didn't, and as a consequence, they're where they are. Yeah.
What do you say is your running leverage rate as you're constructing these? Because it sounds like you're not maxing out your limits on. And so what is?
Always underborrow.
So
like
so
right
what is,
today, when you saw last week, we're borrowing $1.8 million.
That's it.
Everything you saw yesterday,
Wow.
last week.
Very low, but barely 15 or
I don't want
20%
borrow
of the job. Yeah.
Do you use Canadian or American banks?
and so that'll be a running 1 to 2 million throughout the project.
It will peak, theoretically, if you look at the cash flow, the construction development line will peak at 6. Theoretically. Theoretically.
That's only.
But you
the
should have
max when
sales
you
proceeds that
yes.
potentially could
Right.
be
So
paying that down.
theoretically, it peaks at 6. It may get to when we're full out 4 or 5, may. But then we start reinvesting the cash and then we don't pull it out to the end.
Correct.
So that we keep a cushion. I think one of the things is, you asked me, my bank is, I'm dealing with TD Bank.
Right.
Actually, I'm the only home builder they're doing in Florida, other than their Canadian clients, and they're doing that.
Right.
But I had a relationship with them going back 30 years when I was at Minto, so I know the people in Toronto. they're unlike,
They have a lot of locations there now.
yeah, but their philosophy is just, I mean, they really believe in relationship banking and understanding the people and staying with the people in good times and bad times, and there's a lot of transparency. I'm very, very fortunate that they support me.
I guess the 75% construction loan that he talks about.
Yeah.
You guys haven't touched that one?
No, what do you mean never touch? The
when
65 or 75%
Yes.
of value?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we use on the revolver.
All right.
That's the, actually, we did 75, we're ending up at 65. So is this, we tried to get it back to our simple for us, 65% of the sales price is what we can use on the revolver. And that's based, like the $1.8 million we're drawing on now is based, that's what's generating the funds today that we can borrow against. And at $1.8 million, we probably have about $400,000 or $500,000 additional funds we could borrow, but we didn't need to borrow.
Just think of it as a working capital line.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's all.
Exactly.
Okay, so I was curious when I did the numbers and I included all the waterfall profits and everyone getting paid up,
Yeah.
it came up to about 16% IRR.
Yeah, that's what we got.
Oh, that's what you got?
Yeah, yeah, it is 16% actually. If you looked at the cash flows, it was 16%.
See, what's interesting is that.
So you hit it right on, whatever you did.
So, but.
Anybody else get 16%?
But what's interesting about this is that
It's all looked like I was
it's a, for an opportunistic deal, ground up, that's considered a low rate of return given the risk. But there's not really risk here by the way he structured the deal, because he understands every single step of the process. He's managed all of the building blocks, so to speak, from part A to Z, if you will.
Institutionally, they don't want
That's
to
right.
see 16%.
That's right. No, they.
But what they do, so everybody manipulates it to show 20, and they don't get 20, and they take on more debt and they have higher risk. I say, you know what, if you don't like the 15%, 16%, deal with me. My partners and I, that's what we understand the risk. That's what we're comfortable with, and we know that's reasonable. So all these 20s that the institutions push these guys to get, they're not getting them. At the end of the day, they're not doing better than Lamar. And everybody manipulates their sheet with, they're like we just showed you before, to show them what they want, and they manipulate it with leverage, and then they wonder why they don't get it. So everybody's pissed off. So, because I don't need to play that game. So this is what it is. You don't like it, go with somebody else. That's the amount of risk we're willing to take. The guys I deal with, which are pretty simple.
That's good.
That's all we want.
Great.
We don't want more risk.
Yeah,
Do you-
one more question.
Do you maintain leverage throughout the end of the project or at the end of the
No,
project?
try
Yeah,
to
you,
pay it
you
down.
stop, yeah. and
I
then-
want to
take
get
it
rid of
out.
the bank and I want to get rid of the partner capital.
So your last months
It's all
are just
cash.
all.
It's all
He lives to see another day.
cash. Actually, we have it built into the model now, the financial model, that we keep a cushion, like, at a certain point, I think, because I want the cushion there, we keep a cushion of $1.5 million of cash, that cash, not that, and then we can start, we go to the bank and we can start paying down the partner.
Great. Let's give him a great round of applause. Thank you very much. So we have a few more minutes that we need to wrap up our class, and
What about the Big Short? You're not gonna let me spend 5 minutes on it?
5 minutes, because I need 5 minutes for them. Go 5 minutes on your Big Short.
Well,
They
that's
finish at
listen,
10.
They
We go under
only
our lunch.
15 minutes from they were late last week.
I need 5 minutes for them, so I'm giving you 5. 5. 5, folks, yes.
Okay, you guys, if you haven't seen The Big Short,
Who's seen it? All right, some of you.
you all have to see it. And it's a great movie about the housing market and the mortgage market and the crash. And the biggest lesson or takeaway that I can tell you, because, and my wife was with me, we lived through it. We saw a boom like from 2002 or 3 to 2005 that, as a home builder, was beyond our wildest dreams. I mean, it was unbelievable. The way away with raising prices. So people had two choices. You could either believe, and we all believe in general, the same way you hear me talk about Central Florida, that we do the best job and we build the best houses and we have the nicest schools. I mean, if you don't have that type of ego in your utility, you shouldn't be in the business. But what you had to do during that period of time, particularly when it got late 4 or 5, is to understand the difference between whether it was your genius that was driving these prices, or whether there was a market that was out of control that was driving these prices. And fortunately, we understood, small, okay, I'm talking from that as good as we thought we were, this was beyond us. I mean, this was something that was, so we stopped buying land in 2004. We just can't sustain itself. It happens much slower. And effectively, like when they had their trigger date was March of 2005 in the movie. Our trigger date was February 2005, where we knew it was just a matter of time. So what the message is, as you go through life, and these are only, you're only gonna, if you experience something like that, it's only gonna be once in a lifetime, but it's something you always gotta keep in mind, is that we all have egos, we all think we're great, we all do a great job, but you gotta sometimes just stand back and reflect on what's really, when things get out of control, what's pushing it. And you gotta try and be objective throughout your life about these things. That, is it you, is it the market, and make your moves, because when they sometimes take a long time to unravel. Like you saw those guys in The Big Short, the traders. It took 3 years to unravel from their standpoint, and it's a gut-wrenching 3 years. And same thing with us. Like our world in Florida changed. Wilma was October 2005. But if you were sitting in the general public, everyone talks 2008. We started seeing it, well, we all saw it in the season of 2006, because everything slowed down in Florida and California. And then the mortgage default started, and then this started, but it progressed, 6, 7, 8, got worse, and then publicly, it was all, because remember, the publics had their backlogs, they were hiding things for years. So to the world, it was 2008. The wheels came off at the end of 5, 6, and the mortgage market cratered in 8. So sometimes those major cycle events occur at a much slower rate than you think. What I'm trying to say is, keep some humility with your ego, stand back and be objective.
And that's what he does every day.
Well, I'm trying to.
All right, good. Well, thank you. All right, so I need to give you a lesson in humility for the next 5 minutes too, as well.
Can I listen?
All right. No, you stop.
No, but can I listen?
Yes, you can go.
No, can I
Can
listen?
you listen?
You can listen, sure. Okay, yeah, fine. So I'm handing back your New York Times case study, which you all worked on. And so good news and some generally good news. And so here's the thing. So I've asked you all to follow your format, which is the business memorandum template. The reason why I asked you to write a standalone case study is because you all, at some point, just like what he did in a way, you've got to stand up and present a case, a presentation to a lender, to a client, to anyone, and it's got to stand on its own merit. And so when some of you say, well, the answer to question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is, but based upon what? It's got to be prefaced by the background, the situation, and the recommendation. And the good news is, now that you're into the second or third case study, is you've got an excellent start. So I'm thrilled that you're starting to use your critical thinking. But then some of you kind of, well, you lose it. And without naming names, some of you said, well, then I didn't have enough information. By the way, I'm not engaged in trickery here. You always have enough information to make a decision. And when you say, well, gee, you know, the case study wasn't here, well, there's always information for you to make a stand or take a decision, and the decision may be, I'm not making the decision, or no, it's, my recommendation is not to make the deal, and here's why. So, if you have that particular decision, I want to know what the support is for that. And so, every effort, you've got 1 or 2 more case studies to do, is to tell me why you're doing that. The whole purpose of this is critical decision making, so that when you leave this course, it's not because you're going to get all the right answers. I don't expect you to. If you do, God bless, that'd be great. It's taken me 30 years, it's taken him 30 or 40 years. We don't get it. Our goal is, hopefully, that you won't make the same mistake twice. You're going to make a mistake, but you'll learn from that mistake. And here, you're going to learn and say, okay, well, if I understand this, then maybe I'll learn the next time to incorporate that into my decision-making process and do it better. And so, I'm thrilled that you're starting to figure out these kinds of things, but you aren't there yet. And so, you now will hand in your case studies on this, and I'll learn and read. Our case study for next week is called Steel Street. That's the Pittsburgh case study. Far from what we've talked about, and you're going to read the case study, and we're going to work on it, and then of course we'll have the opportunity to continue to work on the NAIOP challenge. The reason I'm presenting that to you is because, well, just think about how are we going to figure out, we don't have the full information, but you're going to do the research just like you're doing for this. And each one of these case studies is going to give you just enough to figure out how to either hang your hat or get the knife and hang your head. Depends on what it is that's appropriate. Okay, so look, you're all getting better, but I hope you'll get even better at what you're doing. So I'm just going to continue to hand this out. If you have any questions, you can speak to me directly. And so I'm pleased to see the improvement, and I'm hoping you'll continue to get better. All right? So that's it for the end of the day. Thank you. Marianella?
So there's only one more. Two more meetings or one?
Yeah, I know, I was like.
I know.
I saw him, he was there ordering.
And that was pretty simple. So thinking on those simple approaches. That next step.
I started, I understood up to like, I understood the beginning part of my model, so that's like, we estimated which ones were good, and then like, I thought you were just like,
So I don't know where Dr. Forgy and I know you've done for a lot of the other stuff, and I'm not
Because I want to stop there.
challenged. I just easier the last one. So I'm making a comment that I agree with everybody.
Thank you.
no, I know it.
Right, I know you know it. Okay, so hopefully you will get it. Hopefully you will on the next test.
I can do trials. He gave me a new one.
There's one more case study. Let's see, this is
Go online.
one more case
Yeah,
study,
no,
and then
I
there's
forgot. I went to get him and I left. I knew you were going to ask.
challenge.
I got all my contacts
Yeah,
information
you
online.
Steel Street, and then
And then you're gonna drop it.
What's that? Good, man. Good.
yes, we won't have this meeting. We'll have the
We're here with Joel.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Joel does the same thing.
We should have hearing. Yes?
Oh, okay.
Sure, sure,
Layer it out.
Joel's like
That's how my summer school was. Like, class for years, and then like time before. But then I had Tuesdays. I had every Tuesday. That's I'm gonna have Tuesday classes every Tuesday in the summer from 6 to 10 o'clock.
That's Steve Budweiser. I was at
Oh, well, you were.
Oh, you guys are class. I'm
Go online.
I'm out. I'm out, guys. Have fun. See ya. That's Steve to see the picture. This week in
And then you're doing the next slide.
Alfred.
So what are you doing now? Oh, yeah? Okay, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you so much.
No.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you should support someone.
Oh, really?
So that helps because I had the training and I knew how to prepare it.
All right, we did it.
But also,
That's why I put this up.
We gotta figure out how to
No, it's the deposits and it's like the reason why you pay on the first of the month because like they want to secure your payment. So like if you leave like midway, he still has your payment.
Then you're gonna get.
There was a security deposit the first of the month.
Yeah, yeah,
And
okay.
then
And if you need me to come back.
Wasn't it three?
oh,
Yeah, that was
Oh, yeah, then they have some.
That's like if my credit is bad, my parents sign it. Or if there's like a 19-year-old, yeah. So like the 18-year-olds that don't have any credit, their
Take
parents
care.
Yeah.
So the first, the rent is in
The
advance,
security,
the deposit, and the third one, okay, what about the loan? Like,
that was just like pretty much the laws that like the landlord.
like when you pay, when you, so that you don't have to pay twice.
Yeah, no, it's the other spreadsheet, the mortgage one. No, it's,
That was like the landlord. I'm just gonna example when the landlord says like you're moving date is June 1st. No, yeah, your moving date is June 1st. That is securing that you will get. Yeah, that is saying that you will get that apartment on June 1st.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Why enjoyment? Because
No one will bother. Like the landlord will like
comment of the fitness of the premises.
That was the
He
one.
says, assures that the premises are artificial, they get clean, whatever.
Oh yeah, he's a doctor about that.
And the appliance, the warranties of the stability.
He's a doctor about that.
So only to the installation of the quiet.
Background reconciliation, findings
There's
and
another one I wrote down.
conclusions. Next steps and recommendations. I don't see that anywhere here.
No, that should be here.
Okay, all right, for your request, alright, so you can incorporate this item,
Oh, delivery to the mayor.
just like
Delivery
that.
to taxes and public code
That's,
compliance.
some people there and they make that.
Yeah. If the landlord repairs what the landlord says he needs, or like,
No, I thought it was mainly when I rewatched that part of the video. He said, say you break a window,
you have to repair the window. But if you moved in and the window was already broken, the landlord has to fix it.
if you're in the house and say like the fridge breaks or something, that's the say the refrigerator breaks, like, that's the landlord.
But if you like have a party and somebody breaks
If
it,
somebody breaks it, then you're responsible.
yeah, but it's like the real thing.
The landlord's paying taxes. I'm quite honest with you, gross bills.
No, like in general, like if it's stated that it's
Yeah, no, well, if it's a double net or triple net, you say to pay taxes.
yeah, that's like if it states in the contract.
Well, triple net, you have to get net, you know what I mean? It's like double net is taxes and insurance, triple net is maintenance, taxes.
No, but she's talking about this was under that residential act.
Oh, you're on the
Residential.
Okay, so, what about if it's?
Yeah, that was like, there was two types. There was like.
Yeah, I agree. I learned about it. I just think it's like a lot happening that's like 6, 7 already. That's what I'm
So the
Voluntary implicit, so voluntary is like voluntary avoidance is like if he broke the window and like just didn't fix it. And then permissive was like you broke the window and you purposely didn't fix it. You like purposely didn't fix it. Voluntary and permissive ways? No. Look at that. What are you doing? Get her.
I'm just playing. I'm trying to sabotage the
You see what they're attacking?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so yeah, so there was so voluntary waste removal results from positive actions of the tenant, willing police seeking even though such required landscaping service. Voluntary is like they purposely broke it. Permissive waste was active omission. So fair, yeah, where they broke something and didn't fix it.
What is the permissive? What is the
Permissive is like they broke the window and like they forgot to fix it. They just forgot. Voluntary waste was like they purposely broke the window and didn't want to fix it.
You're to the cell?
Yes, they didn't have it, right?
I'm just gonna cross out to the south now.
Oh, yeah.
You've only been here for like 1 semester, right? No, he's gonna be like, no, yeah, he's gonna be like, in the contract, it stated that the landlord was supposed to fix it. Or like, it'll be like a tenant has a broken sink. Was that his obligation to fix it or the landlord's? The landlord's, because unless it states that the tenant broke it, it was the landlord's obligation to fix it.
No, the tenants, the tenants of the LDC or tenant litigation, so we prepare that and avoid waste. So avoid waste is like they break something and they don't really do
Based on the
anything about
client,
it.
whatever the client wants.
The duty to insure, like they both of them.
They have to insure.
They have the duty, but if they don't do it, well, everybody nobody's responsible for their the damage, right?
That's just like saying that, that's just saying like you each get renter's insurance.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
Which I
you
don't-
make yourself.
But I tell you, no,
But I live in like the building where there's like 24-hour security. I'm like,
well, so that means law, it's like, law. Yes, like, that's what they are required by them, you need to prove that you have it, not insurance. And sometimes just for like.
yeah, like when you,
Wrongful eviction is like when you like let's say that you're the unforeclosed, like oh you're right there, you're right there. So they have to evict you because like my house was supposed to be construction eviction, landlord did not fix those so let's say the construction eviction. So there are two types of eviction, constructive and wrongful. The wrongful eviction is when like
you don't pay rent.
Okay,
no.
that's fine, so
Wrongful
content is there.
is when if they're good, good standing, right? But let's say I have house in foreclosure and I tell you, oh, you can move there,
Yeah, I
you
know,
can rent.
I know, so
It's like,
because your
oh, we're
content
gonna
is
evict you
good,
because you
what's
know
there
the
to
owner
place it
didn't
within
pay
the
the
right
mortgage, so we
format,
have to.
then
That's what I'm saying, right?
ability
That's
to
what it
deliver.
is.
I mean, honestly, that layout.
Okay, so the
Or you get it
conversation.
per time maybe.
What?
Okay.
The tenant may retain the remainder of the property.
Let me see what it says here.
Now what is the wrong?
No, so
Starting off.
No, so the wrong, so I don't understand what it is.
it's a breach of the covenant by so you're making a non-noise.
No, the comment that the point just is like the landlord cannot come here every time to my house, you know, just to check how it is, you know, so wrongful eviction is.
Okay, so, okay. So wrongful eviction is like, the landlord is saying like, is evicting you,
It's a little more simple.
because let's say, okay, let's say you said that you deposited your rent, right? And your landlord was like, I never got it, you never deposited your rent. And you don't have a receipt, you don't have anything to prove that you deposited your rent, but you know you deposited it and he thinks that you didn't get that rent, he's gonna evict you because he thinks that you didn't get
So
it.
wrongful is when
They evict
by mistake.
But yeah, pretty much.
All those.
But what you're saying here about
Basically saying, hey, we're gonna kick you out.
talking about the payment, whatever, the fine judgment, the fine judgment.
So that's like, yeah, because like, let's say like you're,
It's gonna be a lot
let's say like
simpler
you're smoking,
than what it
like,
could
let's say I'm
be.
smoking weed,
But I'm gonna basically
my
redo.
landlord just butts right in and says, what are you doing in here? Like, you can't have this, and evicts you because you're not supposed to be doing that. So that's covered in the ordinance, and he just busted in without any notice.
So basically, wrongful eviction is just.
You're gonna put it, yes. If they, when they say covenant, when they say, because it says, sue for, it says, can sue for recovery of possession of the premises or for damages caused by the breach of covenant of private. Yeah, or like, let's say you broke something, or let's say it was like, was broken, and the landlord was supposed to fix it, and he never did, so you're not paying rent. He was supposed to fix it. Yeah.
What about the
Sorry.
That's when like, that's like the foreclosure, when the tenant, right, so that's like when the tenant just like also leaves because there's.
You had recommended that to your boss.
Yeah, that's like the,
And like,
your landlord hasn't fixed it, so you can't live there, so you just get up and leave.
So the only.
And they evict themselves.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I basically spent, 6 weeks on the phone, it's in the whole high.
The damages is like again, like the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically I can see there's 3 ways to I can
Yeah.
that you put your
It's because the damages, like no one puts the damages. You wanna reform the lease?
Why?
Let's
Let's
say.
say-
Printing press again.
Oh, I handed you mine.
I know you did. My poor HP printer, you know, it like cracks up after every 6 months.
Funny because so like, he run down the thing.
Go, just do well in your life.
It's not.
Actually, I do own a printer, but it's my mom's.
That's what when she's like,
Third time will be a charm.
And just tell me how much tax you're
what
gonna
is
pay.
that?
That's gonna be a funny part.
Rescission
But
is when
if
they
you want,
like,
if you want,
yeah, so you go to court and you say, I wanna start from.
Yeah, thank you.
Because what I was gonna do is I was gonna do.
Okay.
And he's gonna sit there and show me the basics.
Okay, so
For what? For the performance? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, can we have like a group project so we can like explain? But like my thing is, okay, my thing is when we did the finance class with Fred, he walked us through. He said, this is your purchase value, this is your loan, this like, and he gave us everything, and he walked us through, and I get that. But then when like we do these case studies, it's completely different because it's not given, and you have to figure it out yourself. And like I understand that, and I'll be able to do that, but I don't know what, like I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, like
Like I start to organize, like I'll organize it and say, okay, this is for this much, but then I'm like, what do I do with these numbers?
basically like the project, oh, this is maybe of this, this type of those, I wouldn't even think about it.
That was the only part I understood, and then after that I was like, what?
So I'm gonna first watch what you guys are talking about the financial classes. See if
It's
I
a
know
lot.
I know.
No, but
I need to
you
figure
know
something
what?
out.
Why we don't meet with him like Monday? So we have a chance to do the next one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Monday I have no class with her.
Well, what
But
about
Tuesday.
Tuesday? So let's meet Tuesday.
I could probably do
I mean, if not, we can record or something.
Yeah, I mean, just text me and he'll set up.
So do
right
you want to
now.
schedule something for Monday? I mean Tuesday? Can you send an email and then just copy
Like
me?
here?
Whatever,
I'm
yeah.
gonna come to the office.
Yeah.
I just need a little quick boot camp. If you
Mhm.
want an hour.
Exactly.
And
I'm
with the
good.
new case studies?
Let me tell them to prepare my food because they didn't have anything for me. So just let me tell them to make the able to do this.
I'm kind of confused on,
Trade pictures are just pretty much what is not attached or what is attached.
so like take pictures
You
of
know
like
people that
my
still
last
do
part
time
of my
shares?
roommates. She
Do you know people that
she
still
put in
do
her own
time
bin in her
shares?
room.
It's who is?
If people
Technically,
that
she
still
could have
do
taken it out
time
with
shares,
her,
like I
yeah,
remember
but she
Yes,
wasn't.
they are, but
Arbitration
not
mediation,
very
I
often,
think
which is,
some kind of like
presents
not really good at all.
problems,
I feel like
issues.
basic.
What can I say?
It's trial court, which appellate court, and then it's trial court.
I'm sorry.
Trial, appellate, Supreme. And then like there's federal courts, and then there's like U.S. trial, court of appeal, and then Supreme Court, but it's like still the same thing. Yeah.
But I know what they don't classify. Precedent are just previous cases that have been decided.
I remember precedent are previous published cases that the judge has to follow.
Fee simple, it's just basically.
See, that's, I don't understand, like fee simple is like your everyday building, but like, and then fee simple, and then what
The
is
fee
the
simple. Because you don't care about that.
You know, that was like when it
Preserving your life or some shit.
you know, you didn't understand. She said divisible, I think divisibility was like when it says like there's a stated end. That's what I wrote down. So I don't understand. Yeah, I wrote the feasible fee terminates upon state and transfers title with restriction. So like let's say you buy a house and the contract says like this house is no longer yours after 4 years. That's no reason it to be.
So I have nothing to do with like giving my property up to wildlife as long as it's reserved for wildlife on that property, that's not signed.
So like the difference between freehold estate and a life estate is that like
Freehold you can pass on to your children.
in a life estate you can't. That's what those are the ones that I prefer.
If you have an estate, you can actually pass on to your child. Then like estate typically have that. You can pass
So
on
it
to
goes
like
back to the remains of man.
Took a long time though.
typically they're trying to like, you know, can also manage your practice on the person.
Yeah. But like if you you remember from last class, I always said just BS and add as many local for doesn't.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a freehold and a life estate?
The life estate is for the life of somebody else or theirs. Freehold?
You can just
Freehold.
pass on like here, a year to your. Pass on to your.
I never thought about it. Freehold
It says
estate.
I wrote uncertain duration, and they pass interest to their heirs.
What chapter is that? So I can look at my notes.
4.
Chapter 4.
Whatever you just use is so good.
Dower?
Yeah.
Dower.
What do you think?
That's the right, that a wife has
Yeah,
in marriage.
for a third of your interest.
Yes.
Yay.
Homestead is like your residence. What are the two different definitions? People kept going off track and for that conversation is really what we need to actually know. For homestead, remember I texted you? And it was like, what do we need to know for homestead?
I was just.
Yeah, I thought it was just like, you need to know what your primary residence is what it counts.
Yeah, it's
No,
automatically
that's
gonna
pretty
go
obvious, yeah.
to the spouse, if there's a spouse, if there's not, obviously it would go to the heirs.
But
Like a creditor can't put you in your homestead.
Yes,
why can't they put a lien on it?
the mortgage can't know.
Right. Wait. If your homestead property is your primary property, and you're paying mortgage payments on that property, and you forget to pay your mortgage payments, why can't they put a lien on it?
No, they can't.
So why just say,
Creditors. Your mortgage is always first position.
so like the tax you pay? What do you mean?
Once the creditors then. Hey, that's creditor. Like, if you owe money to creditors, you can't.
People who would.
Acquire your homestead. Creditors are like, I don't know, anything from American Express, you owe them
Oh,
$20,000.
yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, the only people that can put lien on house are
Mortgages, it's always in first position, and that's why in the co-ops, they don't wanna get in there because they're not in first position. That corporation with their first mortgage, that mortgage is in first position, so they
There's a
will
lot
always
of
be
co-ops
junior.
everywhere.
So what is it?
The homestead was, you just get taxed on your primary residence, but the tax, like the only people that can like pay in your The reason I never understood it for the real estate test was because they like went into homestead and like went into tax, like the points and like tax, and I was like,
Freehold estate, an interest in real property created to last for an uncertain period of time.
You're free, it's
Basically.
ongoing, yeah.
So it's better than a life estate, because the life estate is a
What you
return
die.
of somebody else's
Or
life,
somebody
or,
else's
or yours.
so like when you buy a normal house, like if I went and bought a house, it would be a real estate.
Professor, some people still are waiting for their food because they didn't have it ready. They should be coming soon.
FYI.
The ones who get a bagel with a line of long.
It's okay. I told you, no, don't be, no, I wanna cook it.
That's why I haven't gotten it. I'm like, I don't wanna get a sandwich. No, we've
There was
been
one time I
eating
got
it
a
since
sandwich.
August though.
There's one time I had a sandwich.
We've been eating those sandwiches since August, so it's like you get
There
over
was-
it. Everybody's like, ugh.
There was one time I got a sandwich and the tuna was like, I mean not the tuna, the turkey was like literally like gone.
Mine was good to
Like, oh.
Like you know when the turkey breast gets like
Rebecca, can you use your
slimy
hand
and strong?
to open that? Everything else. Joy Frenzy.
Joint tendency was
Right
divided.
survivorship. Tense and common don't.
Wait, what was- oh,
survivorship
co-ownership
and
is-
tenants entirely too, because normally they're spouses.
Co-ownership.
I just did a little thing so I can remember like.
Oh, no, these people are messing.
The only one I know is tenants and birds.
Tennessee common is what? Tenants in common don't have the right to survivorship. Joint tenancy does have the right to survivorship. Joint tenancy and tenancy by the entirety does.
Like everybody has survivor, but like everybody has survivor,
But the
but
tenants in common.
Yeah.
everybody has survivor.
That's like a condo. You could
What?
put it like that. Because technically they're tenants in common.
Yeah.
They haven't divided whatever. Everyone has.
Partition is when they get rid of it, right? Yeah.
Where do they go by?
There goes Joel.
Oh, LI. Yeah. They go by that. That's who referred to that right
Did you look up that?
What does this mean?
I'm sorry, can I say
That it's gonna be inherited.
Answer your question, that in growth benefits the person and the burden benefits the land. So that's.
Growth, escribe I y después growth. Growth. G-R-O-O-S.
G-R-O-S-S.
Okay.
And that benefits the person,
Doesn't benefit
the land.
a person.
Oh, that you just mentioned growth? Yeah, that was like the first one. Like let's say I have,
What is cultivate? Cultivate is what they're like. You say like you give it to your son and you give it to somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can will it, can you will it or not?
Okay, so that's what it means.
Well, not necessarily will, but.
About the curricula or realtor?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, both.
Alright, thank you. You're right. You're right. They go by. Yeah, well,
What do you see that?
ooh, sorry, what did you get? No, they haven't.
Don't worry about it, you know, we'll wait till next time. It's fine, it's fine. So this morning, we got
No one's got anything for this weekend, I'm sure I get it, uploaded tomorrow, it's coming tomorrow morning.
And was used in line.
That's fine, I can easily
Was the
do that.
fixture in use
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just let me know, copy me and.
We're gonna give you an opportunity
We'll figure it out.
to be a part.
You're gonna get like.
Absolutely, we'll see how it
There's a
goes.
reinstitute study group.
Oh, yeah, okay, we need to do that.
We must follow the outline format we've established. about? Oh.
So, that's a property that he sells it back to the Triple Track.
4121 Northeast 26 Terrace. Where's Lighthouse Point? East of Federal, 33061.
Hey, mira. ¿Qué?
That information ready for me?
Information out, bought it. All in up.
Folks, let's go ahead and get started, please. We are, it looks like we're one short for a moment. One guy's ill. And but I think to get through this stuff, we better get on it. I know you know we're gonna have our midterm at the end of the class. I'll try to save an hour for that. It ain't gonna take that long. If you studied it all, you'll be out here in a half hour. Anytime. It is not worth, I guarantee you it's not worth the fretting you've been doing over it. But it's going to include the two chapters we're going to talk about today. We are shifting now into part 3 of the text, which the text calls purchase agreements, sales contracts. There's a dozen names for them. We'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to go through the first chapter, 10, which is general contract law, and we're not going to focus on it very heavily. We're just going to zip through it as best we can because these are general contract law concepts that apply to real estate contracts, but they apply to all contracts. I think we'll do better spending our time in the next chapter going through line by line the real estate contract that I sent you. I think it'll tee up all the concepts. But there are a few basics you got to understand about contract law. So we're going to try to hit the high points from chapter 10. And then move on to 11. We'll have a form. So, a contract. I'm sure you know what a contract is. Any agreement between two or more parties. According to materials, it has to have certain essential elements. And we're going to talk about what those essential elements are in a moment. Just about anything is a contract. I mean, You walk into the Verizon store and agree to buy a phone for a couple $100. They've made an offer to sell it to you for a certain price, you've accepted the offer, probably sign up something, but the point is, even before that, you have a contract. In our context, but not always in a contract, it's gonna be somebody agrees to sell, and somebody agrees to buy. Now, in order to get there, according to the text, and to have a valid contract, you have to have 5 essential elements. These are not as complicated as that sounds. They're things that you're used to. And the first one simply is an offer. Somebody has to make an offer. An offer is a proposal that is intended to create a contract if somebody accepts it. Now, the materials talk about an offeror and an offeree. You'll never hear that again. Forget it. An offer has to be communicated. It can be communicated any way you want. Verbally, in writing, email, text. The only importance of the method in which you communicate it is that constitutes your agreement that it can be accepted the same way. You can't send a text to agree to sell your car and the guy writes back and says fine. And say, oh, no, I wanted a written contract. You can't accept the way I offer. It has to be communicated, and the method of communication guarantees that it can be accepted in that same fashion if it's not stated. It may say something. And my point is, if it doesn't say otherwise. If it says the offer can only be accepted upon a 20-page written contract accompanied by a $200 deposit, well, then that's how it can be accepted. So it may contain terms that discuss how it can be accepted, but if it doesn't, it's the same method. That's pretty basic. The materials get into at great length, and it's way overkill, the 8 ways that you can withdraw an offer after you make one. That ain't gonna happen. I mean, yeah, you may withdraw an offer. Thank you. But it's not nearly as complicated as the text implies. First of all, you can revoke the offer before it's accepted. That's pretty basic. I withdraw my offer. I revoke my offer. I don't want to sell to you anymore. You kind of do that. A lot of people worry about, oh my God, I made an offer. How do I kill it? You can revoke an offer at any time until it's been accepted. Any time. Once it's been accepted,